content. It's not our intent to offend anyone, but we want to inform you that if you are a child under the age of 18 or get offended easily, this next show may not be for you. The content, opinions, and subject matter of these shows are solely the choice of your show hosts and their guests, and not those of the Entertainment Network or any affiliated stations. Any comments or inquiries should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for listening.
Hey everyone, and welcome to 50 Shades of Bullshit. I'm your host, Christine Lalonde, and this is the podcast where we uncover the truth about online dating. Now let's begin.
Hey everyone, this is Christine, and I'm not sure what's going on, but we're not quite. There we are. We always got something going down here, whatever. Welcome everybody to 50 Shades of Bullshit. Very excited to have you all back today. Today we have an incredible guest that is a repeat customer. Chantal has been with me. This is our third time. We're today unpacking why we keep attracting emotionally unavailable men. And so Chantal is an expert for relationship and dating. She's an author and founder of Raise Your Love Signal. And today we're going to break down the patterns, blind spots, and bullshit beliefs that keep us stuck and how to finally change those signals that we're actually sending. So welcome back. I'm so happy to have you.
Third time's a charm.
I know. Actually, I went and looked because I was like, oh, how many? Because I thought it was more than 3. But your first episode with me was episode 17.
Wow.
And today we're at 248
or 58. I think.
Let's see. Oh my God, why does everybody think they have to call me in the middle of my freaking show? It's like 218, I think.
Wow, congratulations. That's consistency,
you.
Persistence, and I know how much work you put into this show, so congrats.
It's crazy. I love it though. But your first episode with me was called Raise Your Love Signal, and I have to say that was a big turning point in my healing journey, really looking at my way that I related to relationships and men and to myself. And it really opened my eyes, and whenever anybody says, oh, when did you start your healing journey and what was the turning point for you, your face pops up into my mind every time. I truly feel like your episodes have really meant like so much to me. Your second episode was 115. And that one was Attract and Keep the Love of Your Life, which I just thought, oh, maybe I should go back and listen to that one again.
I would if I were you, because I always say, it's like, it's so hard. We work so hard to find our person, but we don't realize how much work it is to actually make sure that you stay with your person in a healthy, long-term relationship. So it's important to be able to know the information before you go into the actual relationship so you can set yourself up for success.
Exactly. I am actually going to change my setting in my phone real quick so that all my little questions for you don't keep disappearing, because my phone decides 30 seconds and that's it. It's a countdown. Well, I'm really happy to see you. I know that since the last time you were on the show, you got engaged.
I did, yeah.
I love that for you. When is your wedding, or do you guys have plans for that yet?
No, I'm probably the only woman on earth that finally gets married after being single for 18 years, finds her guy, gets engaged, and it's like no wedding plans.
There's no hurry.
No, there's no hurry at all. I think it's a big difference between if you're trying to start a family and where we are in our relationship, and we want to do a destination wedding. We haven't figured out
I love it.
Where. I'm a person that needs to feel, touch. It's like I can't buy online clothing. I need to, have the experience in person. So we haven't been able to narrow down exactly where, what. So when we do, which hopefully that'll happen in a year or two, we'll tie the knot. And
I love it. Good for you.
thank you.
Hey, you found your person. I mean, that's most of the battle.
It's a big battle. And as you know, it took me almost 18 years to get there. So when we talk about attracting emotionally unavailable men, I mean, that was my thing. So I don't want to say I'm an expert at it, but I know a thing or two. I wrote a book about it as well.
I think you're
why
an expert.
that keeps happening. Yes. So I'm excited to have this conversation today.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things that for this whole conversation is the why. Why are we attracted to this kind of situation? It's not like, when we're women, well, I can't speak for everyone, so I'm just going to speak for myself and the ones that I'm closest to and the ones that I have in my circle. We're ready, we're willing, we're able, we're excited, we want to meet our person, we want to move forward, but yet we still tend to attract these men who on paper sound perfect for us, and we're so gung-ho, and then we realize that they're emotionally unavailable. And I'm just curious why, in your opinion, why we're so attracted to them.
So this is like a 100-part question answer kind of thing. It's like, where do we start?
I can imagine.
And I think I'll start from the beginning, which is kind of the conversation that we had when we first met and we prepared for your show. The first episode that I did is that a lot of women, we'll stick to women, but this is obviously applicable to men, think they're ready and they want to find love, like most people out there, and subconsciously are self-sabotaging, blocked, afraid of getting hurt. There's a lot of like BS, as we love to say, bullshit belief systems that are there that they're not even aware of. And I mean, when we did the exercise together, I think, you still reiterate that was kind of like the aha moment where it really opened your eyes. So things like having a clear vision of what you actually want and what really matters, because when we're creating a vision or trying to attract a partner, we're often so focused on the person, we don't think about the actual relationship. And we really, really get focused on superficial things. And the superficiality of things is not what's going to keep you in a long-term committed relationship, because everyday life happens. And whether he's 6'4" and is a great cook in the kitchen is not what's going to save your long-term committed relationship. Correct. And I think that people really don't think outside the box on what does it fundamentally mean to be in a relationship other to be in love. It's more than just a honeymoon. It's more than this romance novel that we imagine in our heads. Being in a relationship, is not just about that. It goes so much further. So I think because of all how we've been educated, which is really rom-com and Disneyfied, we're in love with the idea of being in love, not understanding that that kind of love is not enough to sustain a long-term committed relationship. So two of the main things that I've seen with the kind of women I've worked with, which were kind of like my twins or who I was in my own things, is that number one, we think we're ready for love and I'm doing everything properly. I'm like doing the work. I'm like everything, but I keep attracting emotionally available men. But subconsciously, I was emotionally unavailable as well, not realizing there was a massive brick wall around my heart. I wanted to protect myself and stay in control of who I would date to make sure men wouldn't leave me. And I think it's really important to understand the root of your first idea of love that you've received, which is from your childhood, your main caregivers. So I think a lot of people don't take the time to really go and dive deep. Like, what is love for me? What's my example of love that I saw? So for me, I lost my father when I was 2 years old. He was the first man I fell in love with. As a 2-year-old, it's like, oh my God. And my subconscious registered that, men abandon you and they never come back. So I had built over the years, even as my mom eventually dated, it took her a long time to date again, but I would say there's been 2 meaningful men in her life. When they left her, I was just, again, it was this wall that would build up. So for me, I always was an avoidant attachment style, which we'll talk a little bit about later. But even in my friendships, even in how I would show up at work, I was the warmest person. People would love to, get to know me, but I was like hands length, always protecting myself. And I didn't even realize I was doing that until at one point my roommate told me, Chantal, she's like, if you can't be vulnerable with your own friends, how do you expect to be vulnerable in a relationship one day? And it really, when you're ready to hear the actual ding, ding.
Yeah.
And I was like, she's right. So that's the first thing that I see. And the second thing that I tend to see is that we're not ready to receive what it actually means to be in a relationship, especially if we're talking about the man-woman dynamic. Especially and I'm talking again, type A, independent, used to doing everything on your own. I left the house, I was 18. I had to fend for myself, as a lot you have, I know, as well, and still do. So, being able to actually receive a man that can provide for you, which has nothing to do with the financial component of things, and letting them lead and be the man, I was my own worst enemy. And especially in my specific case, I was always one of the boys. So I was the cool girl that was like, and that was always working against me as well. So I didn't realize that even though I was doing all the work and reading the books, attending the conferences, and I want to talk a lot about this today because I've been thinking a lot about what I've learned since I launched the business and since I wrote the book and what's happening in the world today. And I realize we're so overconsumed by information. There's so much out there. Everybody's become an expert in everything, and everyone's using these words that, you think about narcissism, gaslighting, like everybody's using I'm in therapy, overusing words without really understanding what they mean and applying the actual work. It's like, how do you make sure you learn and then you embody it? And I would say a lot of what we're going to talk about today, I really want to take this angle, is that we often just the lack of self-awareness and being able to catch ourselves on our own bullshit is the key for you to
100%.
break down old patterns like that, attracting emotional available men.
Yeah.
So if you're able to fit in one of those two boxes, either you go, I'm ready for love, but it's really important to ask yourself the questions like, am I guarded? Am I really, is my heart open to receive and be vulnerable and let myself be hurt? But at the end of the day, it's part of the journey, whether it works out or not. If you want to be in a really nice relationship and experience love, you have to take a chance. And then the second part is like, am I making room to receive and have somebody in my life? I would always say this to some clients that had been single like I had for a long time, and they get really set in their ways. And I remember in my singlehood, I would catch myself all the time. Don't become that girl. Don't become that girl that's so set in your ways. We call it the la vieille fille in French, the old woman syndrome. My toothbrush has to be placed like this. I have to sleep on this side of the bed. And so I was like, don't become that person. So I would always do things to make sure I get out of my comfort zone to be able to make room for someone that would come into my life that wouldn't fit the perfect mold like I am. Yeah. And, nobody's perfect.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think that I think a lot of people get caught up in the idea of love, and then when they start to get there, it just frightens them so much because they're not prepared to love themselves first. They've not done the work on themselves first, and I've said this over and over. I just thought that was a bunch of malarkey at first. But then I realized the error of my ways by doing this show, talking to all the people who come on my show and discuss these type of things. It's so important to really, really understand who you are, why you are, and really work on healing those, shadows and the past, and really be open to, like you said, be in that place to be hurt. And too many people are just frightened of it. And to me, it's just like, it feels like it's another stepping stone. If I get hurt, I get hurt. If I don't, I don't. Hallelujah. Here I am. But, I don't think a lot of people are capable of doing that until they've done the work on themselves.
And again, when we say the work on yourself, because I do believe, there's so much of that right now. If you heal, you don't work on yourself. You can't be in a relationship. And I think it's an ongoing thing. The component for me that's key is really learning that self-awareness, like being able to identify your patterns, why you get triggered, why you get reactive. When you're able to take yourself outside that box and observe yourself, things change. You can see yourself going into a situation and paying attention. Here I am repeating the same thing or trying to pretend to be somebody I'm not to please. It really evolves. And I would say that I lost my train of thought trying to say too many things.
Well, you were talking about the pattern of recognizing things that I agree with you. Healing never has an ending. Healing doesn't have an ending.
It doesn't have an ending. And here's what I wanted to say. Thank you for bringing me back. Is every person that you meet is always there to teach you something or for you to be the teacher and grow if you choose to. And most people will go into the why me? Why not me? I don't understand. What's wrong with me? Instead of saying, because of that, here's what I learned, I saw, I understood, I grew. And one of the first books before I wrote Raise Your Love Signal is called How I Got to Mr. Right. And I never finished writing it. But the whole idea of the book by chapter was to write about all the meaningful men I had in my life that had an impact, that I thought were the one that I thought, I want this to work. And he's my person. And I look back on it today and I'm like, first off, what the hell was I thinking? I was really on track because if I would be with that person today, it would have never worked out, right? And how we convince ourselves of something because of the idea and also being able to see, oh my God, every single time I grew from that and I understood. And I think back, like I've been thinking a lot. I've been doing a lot of thinking in the last 5 months and how I dated in my 30s, even though I had so much self-awareness and self-development, I was so immature and I would just had this idea of being in love with love. So it was like, this needs to work at no matter what consequence, it just has to happen. And I think what I want people to take away from this is that's not reality. And I wish I would have had this conversation in my 20s. I mean, granted that you still need to go through the ups and downs and experiences to understand what you want, what you don't. And, I always say, like when people tell you don't touch the fire on the oven because it's going to get burned, if you don't touch it, you'll never really understand what it's like. So you need to actually at one point end up touching it to say, oh shit, I'm never going to touch that again.
Right. I agree. I think, when we are talking, you were talking about our attachment styles and, how they play repeatedly in choosing an unavailable partner. What does that kind of look like, do you think?
So for me, attachment styles is a tool. It's a tool to give you insight on why you show up the way you do or not in relationships. And to be able to understand as you observe the other person, why they're showing up and doing things the way you do. So your attachment style can always evolve and change depending on the relationship, depending on, everything. So as I said, my fundamental was always being as an avoidant, which is, don't get too close to me. But I would say if I look at how I am today in my relationship, I'm obviously very secure, but things change very quickly when I started dating my fiance, because from day one, he showed me what security was. He was a very secure attachment style. So my reaction was very different of how we came together. I felt safe with him from the beginning, which allowed me to just slowly open my heart. And I think that's another key word is slow. We tend to want to do things so quickly, and we don't get to know someone in 3 months, 6 months. I'm still getting, we were laughing about a month ago because we had like a date night, and I don't know how we got on this crazy conversation. And I was just like, what? He started telling me 2 stories, and I never in my life would have thought and known about the stories that he shared with me. So I was just like, wow, here we are almost 7 years in, and I'm like, still getting to, yeah. So slow it down to be able to pace yourself. And for an avoidant attachment style, and I'm making this avoidant right now just because it's my story, but I needed, and this happens in friendship, I need time to get to know you so I feel safe enough to cross on the other side of the fence. And oftentimes when people are dating avoidant attachment style, they can often be anxious because they tend to attract one another. They're the most populated. So they're the opposite. So the anxious is like, gimme. I need validation now. I need you to tell me now that you love me. I need this to know that it's going to work now, versus trusting the process and understanding what an avoidant attachment means and being able to use that as a tool on how you navigate and bounce back in that relationship. So not taking personally, right? So if you're able to identify quickly that someone's a anxious attachment style, for example, and this, then it's like, I might make the effort, if I'm interested in this person, to check in on them, because I know it's going to calm down their nervous system and they need it. So it might not be 100 times a day like they would like, but I can compromise and say that I'll do it. I'll show more consistency if that's what makes you feel safer. Whereas an avoidant, it's like, don't push me, give me time, give me space to actually come in. So again, attachment styles for me are just a tool to use, not to be defined by them, access to information and observation. Because we often make it about us. What's wrong with me? I don't understand. And it's like, if you're able to identify these things, and that's where self-awareness comes in. Again, I'll repeat it and I'll repeat it. If you're able to observe, pay attention to the signs when you have that toolbox. Excuse me. We never used to talk about attachment style even 10 years ago.
Right.
I mean, when I learned about this, I was like,
I heard of it.
Oh my God. So I find it such a great tool to use. It's kind of like astrology, right? It kind of gives you some guidance system to help you understand things, but not be necessarily defined by them and like make that your full identity.
Do you think that this ties in a lot with that type of pattern when someone is like validation chasing and earning love? Do you think it can become more of an addictive pattern, and it kind of goes in with the way that we are relating to people with our attachment styles?
If I understand the question properly, so if you're chasing for validation and you're trying to earn love, which love is not earned, nobody. So you have a bit of a little problem right there. Is like, stop. Yeah. I need to ask myself, because that means that you need an outside need to fulfill your own needs. And that's like, if that's what you're seeking and you realize that you're doing, it's like red alert, red flag. Like, you need to stop and like really ask yourself some serious questions to be able to.
I agree. Yeah. It kind of brought it together for me when you were saying that, is that I think that a lot of people, we can say people like men, women, whatever, that when they are in that anxious space and they're attracted to an avoidant and unemotional, unavailable, emotionally attachment, that they can be that. They feel like, it's kind of a high or an addiction to chase it, that they seem to gravitate to it because they're like, because if I can turn them around, then I'm special. You know what I mean? I kind of see that, and I can see it in people. I see it quite a bit when friends talk to me and they say, or women talk to me and say, oh my God, I found this guy. He was amazing. He just needs time and space. And then she's doing all these things for him, trying to win him over. That's just a really bad pattern or belief that they can turn him around, and only if he gets to know me will he fall for me.
Yeah,
You know,
because
he'll
I'm
see.
special. I'm different. I'll
Right. Exactly. I mean, and I love that people think that they're amazing, but when it's not about you when the other person is not available.
No, it's not about you. And I think that when you're chasing and trying to prove, and convincing yourself you can change someone, already you're not in the right kind of relationship. For me, that's already
Exactly.
asking for problems in a year, 2, because what happens is that we'll pretend to be someone we're not, to, yeah, I love football every Sunday. Yeah. And then, they move in together a year and a half. Why are you listening to football every Sunday? I would really love to go for a bike ride. And the guy's like, I've told you since day one that I watch football every Sunday. They're just
Right.
like, Or the opposite is that,
Mhm.
because you've pretended to be, because you've tried to convince someone to love you, all of a sudden you start forgetting who they are and not accept them for who they are. So this is what happens in relationship dynamics, where a woman and a man, and I don't understand, try to change them. And it's like, people show their true colors from day one. They can grow and evolve, but you can't change someone. So we're often trying to convince ourselves we'll change them. And that, for me, is a transactional relationship right there. Again, that's what I call the red flag, is that it's not a healthy dynamic relationship. You're trying to change someone. True love, and I mean, the definition of love for me today, it's feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling heard, acceptance. I accept this person for all of who they are. I'm not trying to change them. And it's respect. Did I say respect? I think I said no.
Possibly not.
So, when we think about wanting to experience really healthy relationship dynamics, that's why I tell people, you really need to sit down. And what does that look like for you? Not the rom-com Disney movie thing. What does being in a long-term relationship actually mean? How do you want someone to communicate? How do you want someone to show up for you when you get sick, or your family member dies, or you lose your job? How do you want someone to be able to handle a conversation if you guys are having financial issues, right? Like, last year was a really hard a really hard year on our relationship due to my partner's, I don't want to say it was a midlife crisis, but his industry crashed and burned. And he realized that he was so defined by his work and completely lost his way through. And it was a hard 8 months. Like, it was. And I just remember telling myself, thank God we had set such a strong foundation from the beginning. And I had done the work to understand what love means and how we've shown up together in the last 6 years. Because the love component is like, how do you support and encourage each other through the good and the hard times? And I was like, you know what? I know this is temporary. It's hard as fuck right now. I'm sorry, I don't know.
No, it's hard as fuck. I get it.
But, I was like, this is what real love is. This is what an investment in a relationship is, showing up for the other when the other is not there. So if I would have consistently tried to change, be someone I'm not, I mean, this would have created a whole different curveball, and I might have just ran away and like cut the relationship because I'm not getting what I want the way I want, and just given up, which is what a lot of people do when the hard times get there, if you don't have a solid foundation. So
I also think that kind of ties in with the problem that I think a lot of people have with being attracted to familiarity opposed to real compatibility. Familiarity can come from something that you have maybe grown up with. Like for me, I have to say that, I came from trauma, and the way that I was treated with the men in my life as a child bled into my adulthood, because I was like, I'm leaving home and I'll never, be in this situation again. But I was attracting men that were familiar to the abuse that I had before. So I was perpetuating abuse. I was perpetuating finding men who were not the right ones. And then I went the complete opposite when I thought, well, I'm recognizing this, and now I'm going to change that pattern. But then I started going to emotionally unavailable men. So I flipped too hard the other way. And I think that patterns of really understanding the difference between familiarity and compatibility is important.
So let me ask you a question. So do you
Yeah.
feel now that you understand why you're attracting
Yeah.
emotional? Okay. And what would that be?
Well, I think that it's in my life up until recently, you know, I've really worked on this.
Yeah.
I think it was I think it had a lot to do with me being valuable to them. That if I showed my value as always being there for them, doing things for them, putting myself there for them, whether they were there for me that way or not, that they would, again, I think I can relate to women in the past where when we were talking about the, you know, pick me and they'll change when they see how amazing I am, you know, how much work I've done. And I realized it wasn't about that. And that took me a long time to get on that other side of it, to where I'm in a place, and how I fixed it for me was really working on myself, being enough for myself, not having to be enough for somebody else, valuing my time, space, and energy for me. And then now I'm attracting different kind of men who I'm not putting myself out there to prove myself to. They are showing up for me while I am then reciprocating and showing up for them. So it's different. But because of my past, it took me a long time to self-correct. It was a lot of swaying too far to the left and the right and trying to figure out, you know, this is valuable for me. This is important to me. I really want a healthy relationship. I really want to be in an equal partnership to where we're both giving and taking, and it's not one-sided, unbalanced.
And I first of all, bravo! You should be proud of yourself, because I know you've been doing a lot of work and through your show, and just if there's anybody that I know that's been like really embodying the work, is you. But this is what I want people to know, is that we often do the pendulum, the opposite, right? And that's a good thing. We think it's a bad thing, but it shows you both sides. So you realize, oh, okay, I was in this and now I thought this was better. But at the end of the day, this is not really what I want. So I want people, that's why it's like, if you can just like create inner chatter in your head for like 0.5 seconds of, instead of why me and why not me, it's more like because of that. And what am I seeing here? What am I understanding? And the only way you've been able to break that is seeing, like being able to identify. And I think that a lot of people don't take the time to identify why they are the way they are, or why they're attracting what they're attracting, and really dive deep into that. And you can't fix something you don't know what the problem is, I always say. So having the awareness of your problem is 50% of the job already done. So then it's rewiring your brain. And the other thing I want to say about that is that we often, when we realize, in your case, you had a traumatic childhood, you know, and being in abusive situations a lot of the time, a lot of people, and I'm not dismissing trauma here at all. That's not what I'm saying. We identify to our trauma. And this is a conversation I'm seeing a lot, like, again, because trauma has been like now mainstream, and my trauma. But you can't let yourself be identified. Like it's who you were. Who do you want to become tomorrow? Right. If I would have chosen, like, I remember for me, one of my identities that I had was like, everything is hard. I have to do everything on my own. I will always have to do everything on my own. Nobody will ever show up for me. Right. But that was an old identity and story I chose to say, and even how I would approach my friendships at work. And when I was able to say, oh, I want a new identity now, I'm going to rewire my brain. I'm very aware of this. And this is why I'm showing up and doing things and being an avoidant attachment style and all that stuff. how can I change the narrative now? How can I change my BS, my belief system? So for you today, it's beautiful because now you've also went to the other side where you worked a lot on your self-worth. And I am enough and I am worthy and I don't necessarily need a relationship to complete me, which is often the narrative that people say. And that's why we try to convince. And that's why I say the really good way to pay attention to that when you start dating someone that you like is like, how much of your time are you neglecting of your usual routine? So you start dating someone new, you go to the gym 3 nights a week. The guy can only see you one of the 3 nights that you're going to the gym. And one of those is the gym night. And you actually say, you know what, I'll compromise my gym night. That for me is like, that's a problem. So people lose themselves without even realizing it. And I heard such a beautiful, I don't know if you know David Guillaume. He's he teaches Kabbalah and the spirituality component of it. I really fell in love with his work because at the end of the day, it's really about not judging others and really being at one with yourself, which is God, which is your higher self. You are your own God, right?
Yeah, I discovered that when I did my second mushroom journey. And recently, so many people are talking about this whole thing with religion and everything. And I am just, it just feels good to know that my higher self is my God. So yes.
God, as one of my coaches, the God in you, the good in you. We are all our own God, and that's your higher self. It's listening to you. And he was doing a intervention online with this woman, and he asked her at one point, because she was so sad. She had gotten divorced after 2 years of getting married, and she was young. She's 35, and she's kind of like shooting all over her story. And he asked her, he's like, what did you refuse to pay attention to that God sent you as a message the first 3 months that you were dating? And I thought it was so good and powerful because, at the end of the day, he also asked her, how important was it for you to get married? And she was like, oh my God, it was the thing. I had the fantasy, the white dress, and sure enough, I ended up having this beautiful wedding. I got exactly what I wanted. So he's like, you realize you're a great manifester, but you focused on the wedding, not on the actual partner. And that's why I say it's really important when you're working on your vision, not to just focus on the person. You have to focus on the big picture of the relationship.
Right.
And I love that because we get the messages all the time. Mm-hmm. I work with women that had failed relationships, and I ask them all the time, did you know from the beginning this wasn't the right person? Or, you convince yourself. And I can't think of anybody I've ever worked with, even in a friend situation, that actually said no. It was always, I always knew. And we always know. But we choose to ignore that voice, that higher self voice. So it's very enlightening if you choose to really be able to observe yourself. If you really want things to change and do things differently, you really have to be, I don't like using the word hard on yourself because it's not, you really have to call yourself out on your own BS, basically.
Right. You have to recognize what you're doing. Yeah. 100%. That's changed my whole life. Now we have like 12 minutes, 11 minutes left, which sucks because I could talk hours about this with you. But I want to just for a couple of minutes talk about what does emotional unavailability look like so people can recognize it. But then in the last, 5-6 minutes, I'd like to really talk about how we can help people understand how to make that change.
Mm-hmm. So emotionally unavailability, if you look at it from the bigger picture, is things like, if we make this easy for people to understand, inconsistency, or they'll be super present. When we talk about the whole love bombing thing, they'll be like super in right away, let's go. And then all of a sudden disappear. So that's why I always say slowing down the pace is important. So inconsistency, they can be like texting every day and then they'll stop, disappear for a couple days and then come back, right? So it's like, and again, This is not about making them wrong or right. It's like, does this feel good for me, for my needs? And recognizing. So this is where you can use, like, if you realize I'm an anxious attachment style, you can learn to self-soothe basically with these tools.
Right.
And say, oh, it's not about what she or he is doing. It's like, I'm realizing that, oh, all of a sudden my nervous system is getting like out of whack because I'm not getting what I want. So inconsistency, big words, very wide. I mean, if you're able to observe that, you can get a lot of information with that. I would also say it's people that want to take it slow, like, and can't talk about the future. And that's not a bad thing. I was a person that never wanted to talk about the future. And it's just, I wasn't there yet. It's not that that person hadn't earned the trust yet to get to that point.
Right.
So, and then just potentially lack of commitment in everything that they do in their life. That could show up as emotional availability as well in past relationships if you're having that conversation. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean, these for me are like easy.
The main.
There's not
I think
else?
a lot of men tend to say, oh, I've just come out of a relationship and I'm just not ready yet, and I think that's a great thing to pay attention to. You can develop and build something over time with a person when you're giving them that space and respect their need to self-soothe and not be the one going, oh, honey, I'll take care of you. You know what I mean?
But that's an example again, is that he's telling you, I see this all the time. Men will say, I'm coming out of a relationship. I'm not looking for anything serious. And so that's a sign of unavailability, healthy unavailability, but you're still going to chase. You're still going to convince yourself, I'm going to change him. He doesn't know who I am. I'm special. So when a man says something or a woman says that, that's emotional unavailability.
Believe
that
them.
he's actually, they're communicating it. So believe it.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off, but that.
No, you were right on it. No, right on it. I'd love to talk about, how can we help people start to make the change from, feeling like you just have to be, convincing somebody that they are the person for you. I mean, they may, like we said, look good on paper or feel right or feel like they've given you some kind of like spark or whatever. But then, here you're still chasing what's the thing I've been saying lately? A lot of women tend to see the potential and not the now. Because they may never be the potential. They may never be emotionally available to you. They doesn't mean they will never be emotionally available for somebody. They just may not ever be emotionally available to you. And how do we help people like see that and get through that?
Well, first off, there's so much information and help out there accessible for people to learn this information. So much, like overwhelmingly too much, as I said earlier.
A lot.
So, but it's like, okay, if I'm learning something, it's not just learning the information, it's really paying attention to how am I applying it, because nothing changes. You can go see, Tony Robbins and you get out of there. Oh my God, my life is going to change in 3 days. And you come back a week later, you slip back into old ways. So it's how can you incorporate the smallest little changes on a daily, not even like, how am I showing up for me today? How am I honoring my worth today? How am I honoring my truth today? How am I having self-respect for me today? Like these things that really matter. So first off, you need to do a really big, how do you say, inventory of if you're struggling in love, you really have to sit down and do an inventory and understand why. What have been your patterns? What do you keep doing? Because we often keep on doing and repeating and repeating and repeating. And that's the God's way of giving you your soul correction lessons until you actually learn it and move from it. And the thing is, humans will never change until they hit the wall so bad that they're like, oh shit, I've hit the wall so bad, now I have to change. People don't change. Like they just, until if I'm telling you, you have to stop drinking because you're going to develop breast cancer, and you keep drinking, and until you come to see me and you have breast cancer, you have to stop drinking. But you waited too long. And I really realized that people need to get to that point to actually do a change. So if you're able to, that's why I don't like big goals. It's like focus on one little area. And that's why the self-awareness component, it's like, how do I learn to observe myself? And when I'm observing myself, do I realize if I've identified patterns that I'm doing, why do I keep repeating them? And how can I make sure that I won't be doing it? I still practice that on a daily basis. Like I tend to not finish my sentences, for example, when I'm talking. Because I'm already in another. So, but it's a problem when you're working with clients. Even my fiance tells me all the time, Chantal, you didn't finish your sentence. So what are you talking about? And thank God he calls me out on it. So I'm very aware of it. And when I do it, I'm just like, oh shit, I just catch myself. So I go back and I finish my sentence. But it's something that I've been doing for such a long time that's not going to change overnight. But when you have the awareness and you're able to create that inner chatter of catching yourself, then that becomes the change. And it's getting better. It's getting better. It's getting better. So I think I would strongly suggest people to work with a coach, a therapist. And what the difference between a coach and a therapist, because a lot of people don't know the difference between the two, or they think that one's better than the other. And I think coaches is really about, how much time do we have? Are we good? Sorry.
No, we're good. My air conditioning is too high now.
Oh, that's what. Boo-hoo.
I know.
So I think it's important a coach will call you out on your stuff, right? It's all about inner inquisitive and making you ask yourself the question so you can identify and then, choose what you want to work on. Because sometimes when we're in our own little bubble, we don't see our own patterns. We don't see what we keep repeating. I got called out last fall because with my girlfriends, and thank God, because I practice what I teach, and they called me out on sometimes I just, when I communicate, I sound too judgmental and I get so passionate, and they see it as aggressiveness, which is not. I'm just like, but I realize that I'm trying to convince them to change, and it's not my responsibility, but it's beautiful that they were able to tell me. Help. And then again, I'm very aware of it now. So I'm careful when I'm communicating information, not to convince people to take it. It's more, here's the information, you get to do with whatever you do. That doesn't belong to me. Yeah. So having someone that's able to call you out, help you out, figure out what those are. Honestly, if you want to change, invest in yourself. People are spending so much money on crazy shit except for investing on themselves, which I still don't understand. We want to look more beautiful. We go I see the amounts of money going into their faces, all these women, and they won't invest like on a session of coaching to really it's so
and they're not good inside.
So it's like really the foundation. You need to identify what's going on. If you don't do any of that first, you're like, you're kind of, you're like just going with it, and you're going to keep getting bitch slapped until you finally learn the lesson so hard that you're like, okay, I need to actually pay attention to this. Yeah. And then the second thing that I would say is, ask yourself, do the exercise of asking yourself. We did this on the first episode, asking yourself the question, what does love mean to me? And what do I want my relationship with love to be? When I started doing the business and doing the research for the book, it's a question I started asking myself. And I was like, here I am, been working on like this world for 20 years. And it was a really tough question for me to answer. And I was like, okay, what does the average person out there think? And you really need to identify what that means to you, so you're aligned when you're out there dating what you're looking for. So for example, and I see this a repeating pattern all the time. Yeah, do you have your list? Yes. Are you sure? We go through What are you looking for? And they will date the opposite.
Yep.
People date the opposite. So there's a misalignment.
Yep.
You know, I had a client that wasn't, she one of her things for her that was really important is consistency as she's dating someone.
Mm-hmm.
And, my battery's going to die and I left it in the office.
That's okay. We're almost out of time anyway.
Okay. I think it'll be. So, she was dating someone that was the complete opposite. And I had to call her out on it. I say, you realize that you're disrespecting yourself. Mm-hmm. You're the only one that's being punished because you're not honoring your needs. Mm-hmm. You say you're ready for a relationship. You're disregarding, you're disrespecting yourself on what's important to you. You put that as a value. It's super important to you. And here you are letting yourself be treated for something that you know you don't want. Exactly. So when you're dating, you need to ask yourself, am I really being true to who I am and standing up for what I need, want, desire, and not afraid to be honest and truthful about it and really stand in that? People sway and compromise themselves all the time. So yes. When there's a misalignment between what you want to call in and what you're doing as an act, you're going to keep failing and failing and failing and failing and failing over and over again.
Yeah, I agree. I think that we're out of time, but I just want to kind of cap that with, what you said is that when you started identifying the things you need to work on for yourself, mm-hmm. To give yourself grace and time, that you can't fix it all overnight. Take one baby step, work on it at a time. And mm-hmm. as one thing starts to really develop and grow, others just start to fall into place and you just kind of go. And people ask me all the time, how did you just do this? And I say, I just started with one little thing. I acknowledged what my problems were and I started looking for ways to work on them.
It's compounding over the years that gets you to that, right? It's not an overnight thing. And then, you can always buy my book, Raise Your Love Signal. That's like literally
a good book.
The best of everything I learned in the 20 years it took me and hundreds of thousands of dollars it costs of programs and coaches and, that I've applied and that really works. So it's like I said, there's so many great tools out there, but the key is remembering, how do I apply? Apply, apply, embody, and one little thing at a time. You recapped it perfectly.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being here today. You are an incredible guest. I love you so much, Chantal. I can't even begin to tell you. But thank you for being here. This is such a powerful episode, and I appreciate it. And to all of you who come and listen every week, thank you so much. I love you all so much. Come back again, same time, same place next week. And until then, let's just keep this shit real.
Woo!
If you enjoyed this episode, please share with your friends, like and follow us on Instagram at 50 Shades of _bullshit and Facebook at 50 Shades of Bullshit. Thanks so much for listening, and we really hope to see you again next week.